Welcome to the University of Central Lancashire and to this panel discussion. Today we're going to talk about a lot of the jargon that you hear around higher education, and hopefully we're going to dismiss some of the myths for parents and students who are now getting ready to put in their applications to university to start in September 19. And I'm joined today by a number of colleagues throughout the university who I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, starting at the far end.
Yeah, so I'm Lisa Banks, I'm the Director of Student Services and look after all the student support at the university.
I'm Liz Bromley, I'm the Deputy Vice-Chancellor here.
I'm Rebecca Leach, I'm the Head of Admissions.
And my name's Tim Steele, I'm the Executive Director for Recruitment and Partnerships. So, Liz, I'm going to start with you. You hear a lot in the press about lots of types of universities, Russell groups, modern universities. Could you try and explain to us what does that mean and what does that mean to parents and students who are making their choices at the moment?
Of course, it is complicated when you read in the media that there's different kinds of universities. What does that really mean? I think that all universities today are striving to give their students a really high quality experience. The Russell Group universities tend to be very large universities with medical schools with a very high percentage of their time spent on research. They are great universities for students to go to, but so are modern universities like UCLan. Modern universities became universities 1992 onwards, and we tend to focus on technical, employability, vocational and academic courses. But you tend to find that students who come to a university like UCLan go out with really high level technical graduate level employability skills, and that's terrific. That's what UCLan wants to do. We want to widen participation in higher education and really maximise the outcomes for our students.
So that moves on to Rebecca. Obviously students now are actively filling in their application forms, and as Head of Admissions, what tips would you give to a student who's now filling the form in and going through UCAS, and maybe explain what is UCAS, because not everyone will know what that is.
No, that's true. UCAS is the University and Colleges Admissions Service. They centralise all of the admissions for all the different institutions in the UK. So applicants will be given deadlines that they've got to adhere to. January the 15th is the key equal consideration deadline. So that's the deadline that most of these students will be working towards. Universities expect to receive the majority of their applications by that point. Key points, obviously personal statement, that is the applicant's time to really sell themselves to the institutions. And what they must remember is nothing is too obvious. The institutions don't know these applicants. Any experience that they've got that they may not think is valuable is really, really valuable to these applicants, because they need to tell us about them as a person and actually what they can bring to the institution and why they're really interested in coming and studying that subject choice.
And obviously, as well as putting in their applications for their actual courses, they'll also be looking at their accommodation, Lisa, and universities offer lots of types of accommodation. I know your daughter's recently gone to university. What's your advice about living in university accommodation to the private sector? What are the things people might need to consider?
Okay, so most universities will have a mix of university-owned accommodation and private accommodation. We always say that for first years they really should be in university-owned accommodation. It's usually their first time away from home, and we can keep a closer eye on them and provide support usually round the clock. Students in their second and third year tend to want to be a bit more independent, and then they do tend to move out into the private sector. But for first years, first time away from home, we always guarantee really that you would be better off in university-owned accommodation.
Great. And we also hear a lot now about value for money of university education and what the benefits that brings. Liz, what would you tell parents who are thinking, you know, students are going to come out with high debt and have to repay that? What are the myths you think we need to unpick for parents?
Value for money is a really important concept because we've always known that if you have a university degree, you'll earn probably £100,000 to £150,000 over the course of your working lifetime than you would if you just have A-levels. You'll earn more if you have A-levels than if you just have GCSEs, so it's an incremental scale. But the thing that really I think has to be put to the forefront is that students, graduates really need to have a degree these days just to get a job, just to get a decent job. The market has really changed. And that's the value for money element. But the thing that I think is it's unfortunate that it's hyped up in the news is about this cloud of graduate debt. You know, students will leave the university and they'll have £50,000 worth of debt. Well, if we added up the amount of tax that we're going to pay to the government over the course of our working lifetime, it would be a much bigger number. And if we saw that as a cloud of debt hanging over us, we'd all be feeling very, very edgy. But that's what graduate debt is. It is something that is going to be repaid when you're earning more than £25,000 a year, when you can afford to pay it, and it's deducted from your income at source in a small amount, just a small amount, an affordable amount. If you stop working, or if your salary drops below £25,000, you stop paying it. So it's not like a car loan or a personal loan that you have to pay month in, month out, irrespective of your means. And the other thing that people don't realise quite often is that after 30 years, the debt is written off. So if, for example, you work for 2 or 3 years, you take time out maybe for caring responsibilities or for children, those years that you may be out of the workforce, you don't pay, and that clock soon ticks to 30 years. After 30 years, whatever you owe, it's written off. So graduate debt should be thought of in terms of a future tax. You only pay it when it's affordable. It should not put you off from going to university.
And universities are great about providing lots of opportunities for students. So here at UCLan, we provide students with opportunity to go abroad. We allow them to do a language for free whilst they're here studying with us. But also they've got the huge student support service that your team, Lisa, delivers. And I wonder, you could maybe explain some of the types of support that's in place for our students whilst they're here with us.
Mm-hmm. Most students will do a degree over 3 or 4 years. So if you look back on your own life over the last 3 or 4 years, everyone has ups and downs. So basically that's what student service is there for. It's to help people during that period and to help them while they're at university to get the most out of their experience. So we have teams, for example, like our wellbeing mental health teams, who support students if they're having any kind of difficulties while they're at university. But we also have teams, as we mentioned before, such as our accommodation team, who do lots and lots of events to help students settle in, make friends. And our careers team are absolutely fantastic too. They do a lot of work with students to help them with their employability. So over the period of their degree, they're working on things like placements, part-time jobs, all sorts of different mentoring experiences, so that when students do leave, as well as the actual stuff that they've studied on their course, they are ready to be employed into the jobs that Liz has already talked about.
One of the big things that we've seen in the press as well is around mental health, and that's been raising its profile, and rightly so. What have we been doing as a university to support students who see that they need to access such support?
So the stats at the moment say that about 1 in 4 of students will suffer with their mental health at some point while they're at university. And that's understandable. They're juggling the student debt, they're juggling their work, they're juggling employment, usually part-time work, that sort of thing. Lots of things will contribute towards that. We do 2 sorts of opportunities for students. One is preventative work, so we do lots and lots of things to prepare them and support them, but we also do work as well if students did get into any kind of crisis situation. And we have trained mental health advisors here at the university, and we also work very closely with the NHS as well. So if a student needs referring into the NHS, they would get the proper support. But I think the key thing to say there is it's perfectly normal for students and everybody in the rest of the world really to suffer with their mental health at some point. We recognise that, and we have the support mechanisms in place to help them while they're here.
So Liz, as a mum who's seen a number of children through university, what advice would you give to parents, and what advice did you give to your kids, but now think actually I should give them some other advice because it wasn't the right thing at the time?
Well, I think the hardest thing for parents to do is to let them go. And I've seen 4 through university from start to finish, and my stepson is there now. And it's really hard for the parents to let them go and remember that this is their time when they are going to become independent thinkers. They're going to be responsible for themselves. They might do their own washing and cooking, or they might not. But it's remembering as a parent that this is their time to fly. And I think that with my own children, I was very clear that we expected them to work hard. And indeed, they all did. And I think sometimes it's nice to remind them that they should enjoy themselves, whether at university. It's probably the best 3 or 4 years of their whole lives, and they should just maximise it, take every opportunity that's available, particularly here at UCLan where we offer study abroad. That's such an opportunity that won't come again. So I think, for parents to their kids, they should be saying, have a fantastic time, make the most of every opportunity that you have, and come home when you want to, because it's nice to go home.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard for parents because they don't we have to treat our students as adults. They're over 18. But one of the things that sometimes parents don't realise is that they can sign up for newsletters that we can keep them abreast of what we're doing at the university, whether it's when the exam results will be coming out or when the fees are due to be paid or accommodation. So that's a good way of parents being able to keep abreast of what's going on in the academic calendar so that they know what the children are doing. Rebecca, one of the things that will obviously be happening now is that a lot of students are putting in their applications and they'll be getting offers back from various universities of their choice. But we hear a lot more about unconditional offer letters. And so what does that mean? And if you get an unconditional offer letter before you get your exam results, what does a parent and what do students need to understand about the scheme and why are they in place?
Okay. The unconditional offer schemes, they're quite widespread around the sector now. At UCLan we are offering some schemes on a number of courses. Now this is very much targeted at applicants who are predicted very good grades. Quite often they're hand-selected by the academic community and they're focused on those applicants who they really think are going to achieve well on their study, and also some students who may have some mitigating factors that they would benefit from an unconditional offer. Now the offer doesn't necessarily mean that the applicants should be taking their foot off the gas at all. We are still expecting our applicants to continue with their level 3 study. As Liz quite rightly pointed out, actually employability in the long term is very much on the factor that they've got their A-level study. What we have done is put a scholarship in place for those applicants to still achieve very strongly within their level 3 study, and to achieve a certain point grade there is financial incentives in place. Different institutions will put different incentives in place, but what it does do is support the applicant to know that actually their place is secure. They're not reliant on their exam results. It can also help and support them through that really stressful period of exam time because they know that their place is secure at their higher education of choice.
Great. And what about for the student who at the moment thinks university is not for me? They decide not to put their application in, the January deadline goes past for UCAS. Is that the end of the game for them, or is there any other opportunities for them?
Absolutely not. UCAS will continue to accept applicants up till the 30th of June, and we receive a lot of late applicants. So the 15th of January deadline is only pertinent for some certain specific courses with very limited places. For the vast majority of courses, you can still apply late. Even after the 30th of June, we still have late applications coming through, and then we feed nicely into clearing. So any late applicants, don't think it's too late, do contact the university.
This all builds up to our welcome week when we welcome all our new graduates to freshers in September. What Lisa, can graduates, freshers expect when they arrive here at UCLan?
We have a wonderful week for our students when they first arrive. We tend to with the international students because they tend to get here earlier. So we go and pick all our students up from the airport at Manchester, make sure they settle in effectively. And then our UK and European students tend to join them after that. So we do a whole raft of different activities, academic activities where they get to know the teachers on their course, and also activities where they get to know the actual other students on their course as well. We do lots of things in our accommodation, lots of different activities like treasure hunts and parties and different things like that. So they get to know the individuals that they're living with in their accommodation too. And we introduce them to all the services that exist around the university. So if they did need those, for example, a student with a disability would be given an inclusive support advisor. And anything that those students need, they get to know about that in their first week, even though they might not access that again for the rest of the year. Those services are available for them.
Thank you. Well, I hope you found that interesting and giving you a bit of insight to what we do here at UCLan, and also to help you with your selection of the right university for you. We look forward to hopefully welcoming you in that first week in September when we meet all our new freshers, and we wish you well with all your exams that you'll be taking over the next few months. Thank you.